So there are many reasons why I like to make my own apple cider vinegar. The first one being I really enjoy the fact that it is zero waste and it allows me to not buy a shop bought product anymore. Secondly, I find it to be a lot less potent than the shop bought vinegars, which I can find really hard to stomach. And thirdly, it's a fantastic way to use up any leftover apples that you have in your house around harvest time. So for this particular batch, I picked a variety of apples that were for the most part lying on the ground after harvest. I probably picked these late September, early October, just as the harvest was finishing, and one shop bought apple from my fruit bowl, which I didn't think I was going to get around to eating, but as you can see is only slightly bruised. But as it is a sweeter variety, it's just going to add a little bit of depth and a little bit of sweetness and flavour to the final apple cider vinegar. But you can use absolutely any variety of apple. And the first thing that we want to do is chop your apples up into small chunks, because the more of the apple that's exposed, the more the bacteria is going to have a surface area to work on. I like to use every part of the apple. You can even use cores or scraps for this, but I do like to take out the seeds. You can absolutely chop these even smaller if you wanted to, but for me this is a perfect size. And the amount of apples that you will need will depend on the size of the container you have. So you want to fill it up about 3/4 the way full with your apples, and whatever type of container you use is absolutely up to you. Plastic, glass. I really like this glass container from IKEA. It's just the perfect size for this particular batch. Next step then, we're going to add about 1/4 cup of sugar into the apples. Any type of sugar is absolutely fine. I've just used plain granulated sugar. You can use caster sugar, brown sugar, anything that you have on hand. That sugar is basically just going to feed the bacteria and get things kick-started. And once they've actually fed on all of that sugar, they will move to the sugar in the apples. And to your apple and sugar mix, we're going to add some water. Now what I like to do with this is to leave the water jug on the counter overnight, because we don't want to add any chlorine or any other chemical that could actually prevent or inhibit or even kill your bacterial growth. Chlorine and other additions to tap water can actually inhibit and prevent that. So leaving it out overnight allows some of those additions to just evaporate into the atmosphere, and you end up with a more pure form of water. But if you can get your hands on distilled water, all the better. I don't have access to that, so this is a great way to do that. And you're going to fill your glass container just to the top of the apples. Give it a good stir around to dissolve all that sugar. And once that bacteria has started to break down that sugar, what's going to happen is they will actually start to eat the sugars in the apples, breaking them down and producing your vinegar. And we just want to cover that now to make sure that no debris or dust gets inside, because we are trying to get the benefit of all the natural yeasts that are present in the air without being influenced by any dust particles or microbes that might be floating around in the air. I really like to use a muslin cloth, but a tea towel will work perfectly fine, a loose lid even, anything that will keep all of those nasties out that we do not want to enter our apple cider vinegar. All that's left to do in this part one is to leave your mixture alone on the countertop or in a cupboard, somewhere where it's nice and safe at room temperature, to allow all of that bacteria to start entering the apple cider vinegar mix and doing its job. The only thing that I would advise that you do to make sure that we don't get any mold growing is to give it a stir once or twice a day. Make sure those apples are nicely mixed. So after about 3 or 4 days of sitting on the countertop and stirring, you'll notice that your apples start to turn brown, which is completely normal. They are starting to break down and you will see some tiny bubbles appearing. That is brilliant. That's exactly what we want. That is carbon dioxide, and it is a byproduct of the reaction that is happening inside in your mix. You can see here as I stir that more and more bubbles are starting to form, and as you stir every single day, you should notice more and more bubbles. One thing that you should note is that you won't end up with the same volume of apple cider vinegar as what you started with. There is a certain level of evaporation that happens, and I would say you end up with about 2/3 of the original mixture that you started with. So I actually switched over to a larger jar here because I did do a second batch this year, and I think you can see from the two comparisons the processes that have happened. So So in the bottle, you can see almost a separation. You see the really light liquid on the top, and you can see the darker, more thick looking consistency on the bottom. That is the apple cider vinegar mother. Now you can strain this out if you don't want it in your vinegar, but apple cider vinegar with the mother is a much purer vinegar. It's less refined, it's less processed, and the mother is what contains all those powerful health benefits that you've probably heard about. It's a very healthy culture of bacteria, so I never remove it, I always leave it in, and over time it will develop into what's called a SCOBY, to the point that you can actually remove the mother and use it to ferment other vinegars. So again, here on this second batch, you can see that I haven't stirred it for maybe 2 or 3 days. You can see the apples on the top are becoming quite brown. So I want to mix those in, make sure that the bacteria is having a chance to work on all parts of the apples. So we're breaking everything down, nothing's going moldy, and look at all those bubbles. That is absolutely fantastic. That's exactly what we want to see. This has been fermenting for about 30 days, which is what I would recommend. You'll probably be able to tell as the smell develops when your vinegar is ready, if you've ever had vinegar before. If this is your first attempt at making vinegar, you can buy pH strips, but personally, I trust my own judgment. I think you're probably well capable of assessing when something is vinegary enough to suit your taste. So don't be afraid to give it a taste, it's not going to harm you. For me, this was absolutely perfect. Again, not nearly as potent as the shop bought stuff, which makes it really, really easy to stomach. And all I'm going to do is take a funnel, a glass bowl, and a sieve, and I'm going to pour the apples and strain out all of that beautiful vinegary liquid. You might need to do this in batches depending on the size and the amount of apples that you've used. But look at all that lovely liquid straining through. Give it a helping hand, give it a stir, give it a squeeze, make sure you're getting all of that lovely liquid out of the apples. If you don't have anything similar to a sieve at home, you can do the exact same process by using a cloth and just strain the liquid through, holding back all of those apple scraps. You can then throw those into the compost bin and wash your tea towel or your cloth. That will work perfectly fine as well, just make sure it's clean. So you can see after minimal effort, we are left with this beautiful jug full of vinegary goodness. Again, I did not strain this mixture to the point that I lost any of that mother. I have kept as much of it as I possibly could, and believe me folks, you won't believe it when I say that you are done. You have just made your own batch of beautiful apple cider vinegar, ready for cleaning with, ready for use on salads, ready to act as a powerful antibacterial agent if you have a sore throat. Really, this is one of the most beneficial products that you can have in your home, and even better, it is zero waste from start to finish. Apple cider vinegar will keep for an incredibly long time, as I mentioned, because of that acidic pH. But I would aim to use it up within the first 3 months if you possibly could at all. Typically it doesn't last very long in my house because I do really love to add it to salads. But that's it everybody, I really hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you enjoy the process when you go to do it yourself. And if you do try it out, let me know in the comment section down below. Tag me in all of your social media, and please don't forget to hit subscribe if you haven't already done so, and give this video a big thumbs up.
The reason why you add a sweetened water over the apple scraps to ferment it is because you need that extra bit of sugar to kickstart the fermentation process. So a lot of apple cider vinegar is made just with pressed apple juice. And pressed apple juice will have much higher ratio of sugar than just the scraps. So you make that sugar sweetened solution or honey sweetened solution. You pour it over your apple scraps and you just give it a nice little mix. And what happens is all the lovely bacteria and yeast that exist on the skins and within all the cores and the scraps of the apple will feed off of those sugars, and they will ferment it. Initially, they'll ferment it to alcohol, and then leaving it exposed to air will transform that to acetic acid. And that's what you get with the natural fermented apple cider vinegar, is that acetic acid. And that acid helps kill off bad bacteria. So when you gargle vinegar, if you have a sore throat, that will kill off all that bad bacteria. And it's also just really good for balancing your digestive system. So I'm just giving that a nice mix. Now, the next step for this is to leave it at room temperature, covered, as I've done with this one here. You can see there's a color change here as well. So I just cover it with a cloth, so we'll just swap that cloth over, leave it covered with a cloth for 2 weeks. In that 2 weeks, what will happen if you take the lid off, give it a stir every so often. You don't have to do it every day, but just every day, like a couple of days for 2 weeks. Just give it a stir, and it's just so the apples at the top don't brown too much. So you kind of mix everything through. And also you want to incorporate lots of air into it because there's lots of natural bacteria and yeast in the air that will help feed off of those sugars and convert it initially to alcohol and then to acetic acid, which gives you that amazing homemade apple cider vinegar. And so give it a mix. And after 2 weeks, what will happen is you'll start to see it bubble. So you'll dip your spoon in and you'll see some bubbles. Give it a taste, and once the sweetness starts to go down, then you can start to taste the sour acetic acid coming through. So after 2 weeks, what you do, so this has been fermenting for 2 weeks, is you can get a fresh jug or container, a bowl, and you strain off your apple scraps. And you can see this liquid has started to thicken up too, so it started to sort of extract some of those amazing pectins from the apple skins and cores. And then what you do is just cover that and leave it for another 4 to 6 weeks. And during that time, the sugars will continue to be consumed. So what's great is you've added sugars, but that's just being fermented out. So it's just there to kickstart and aid the fermentation process. And by the end of it, you don't have any sugar content.
از سیب‌های رسیده و زرد رنگ استفاده می‌کنیم. میتونید از مخلوط سیب قرمز و زرد رسیده و شیرین استفاده کنید. چوب اون رو بگیرید، هسته هاشو جدا کنید و خوردشون کنید و داخل شیشه تمیز و خشک بریزید. یه دونه بشقاب یک بار مصرف که جنسش محکمه برمیداریم و به اندازه درب شیشمون برش میزنیم. باید یکم بزرگتر از درب شیشه باشه. با میخ داغ سوراخ‌هایی داخل اون ایجاد میکنیم و با نخ اونها رو میبندیم. به تعداد سیب‌های درشتی که خرد کردیم 1 قاشق چایخوری سرصاف شکر داخل آب جوشیده و سرد شده میریزیم. اگر سیب‌ها متوسط هستند به ازای هر 2 تا سیب 1 قاشق چایخوری شکر بریزید. چند تا دونه نخود خام داخل اون میریزیم. میتونید به جای این کار نصف قاشق چایخوری پودر خمیرمایه فوری داخلش بریزید و بعد آب رو اضافه کنید. بشقابی که سوراخ زدیم و نخ بستیم رو به آرومی فرو میکنیم تا سیب‌ها رو فشرده کنه و اجازه نده سیب‌ها به بالا بیان. اگر سیب‌ها از آب جدا بشن و بالا بیان کپک میزنه و سرکه ما خراب میشه. همونطور که میبینید شیشه رو پر کردم. با یه پارچه نازک یا تور درب اون رو میبندیم و یکش میندازیم. جایی که سرکه رو قرار میدید حتما باید تاریک باشه و گرم. نه کنار بخاری بذارید که خیلی گرم بشه و نه جاش سرد باشه. یک کپک سفید رنگ روی اون بسته میشه و سیب‌ها قهوه‌ای میشن. بعد از 40 روز اون رو خالی میکنیم و از سبد رد میکنیم. میتونید سیب‌ها رو داخل یک پارچه حریر بریزید و به آرومی اون رو فشار بدید تا تمام آب اون خالی بشه. سرکه‌ای که صاف کردیم رو داخل ظرف‌های مورد نظر می‌ریزیم و درشون رو می‌بندیم و در محیط آشپزخانه نگهداری می‌کنیم تا کم کم رنگشون به این شکلی که می‌بینید در بیاد. سرکه سیب‌های عنابی رنگی که داخل تصویر می‌بینید رو من 3 ماه پیش درست کردم. رنگشون بسیار زیبا و طعمشون فوق‌العاده شده. حتما نکات رو رعایت کنید تا سرکه سیبتون عالی و بی‌نظیر در بیاد. نوش جان.
Even though apple cider vinegar has an overwhelming acidic content, you should not drink it straight to profit from its superb properties. Some of those properties contain raw enzymes and also promotion of good microbes in the digestive tract. In order to avoid the style, some people will substitute apple cider vinegar for regular vinegar when they select their favorite vegetables or pair it with olive oil to make a salad dressing with a little kick. However, by merely diluting ACV or adding it to a tea before going to bed, a lot of health concerns will be addressed. Next is halitosis. Yes, this is an awful smell in your breath, especially when you wake up in the morning. It's probably due to too much bacteria inside your mouth. So drinking 1 tablespoon with 8 ounces of water and a slice of lemon before bed will keep that bacteria away and let you wake up more refreshed. Next is lower blood sugar level. Some people have difficulty sleeping because of a peak in their blood sugar level at night. It's one of the leading causes of insomnia. It also impedes the body from burning fat. So ACV lowers blood sugar levels because it increases insulin sensitivity. If you are not taking any blood glucose drugs, try taking 2 tablespoons of ACV right before bed each evening and see if you don't have any more restful night. And if you are taking prescription medications for diabetes, please speak with your doctor before using this natural remedy. Next is hiccups. This nice trick overrides nerves in your throat that are responsible for hiccups. If these nerves have to deal with powerful style of ACV, hiccups becomes less of an issue. Next is sinus relief. If you have a stuffed nose because of the allergens, don't worry. Remember, you have ACV. Rather than reaching for an over-the-counter decongestant, rely on the B vitamins to work with the potassium and magnesium in the apple cider vinegar. It's to loosen up your sinuses so you can breathe easier. Next is drop unwanted pounds. A lot of people are searching or probing for the most effective way to lose weight by trying ACV into their weight loss regime. However, did you know that not getting a good night's sleep is also associated with being overweight? And researchers found out that ACV inhibits the body once it tries to convert starches into calories. Not only that, but it also reduces your appetite. The pectin it contains actually makes you feel more satisfied. So when it's time to go to bed and you're hungry,
sip a little apple cider vinegar tea to feel satisfied and sleep better. Reflux remedy. When your stomach is void of the necessary amount of acid, it tends to move around to do the job that full amount would easily do. When that happens, some of the acid can sneak up the esophagus and burn your throat. So ACV helps to restore that acid and balance your intestinal tract. So try a tablespoon with a full glass of water an hour before bedtime. Next is sore throat. ACV could be a powerful antibacterial. Its acidity helps kill bacteria that live in the back of your throat. And if you have an inflammatory disease, in 30 minutes intervals, take 1 tablespoon of ACV. And at nighttime, 1 hour before bed, drink 1 teaspoon. Then after 30 minutes, drink another 1. Then finally, drink the 3rd dose just before bed. Next is restless legs. If you have restless legs or are often plagued with leg cramps in the middle of the night, it's probably a sign that you're not getting enough potassium in your diet. By adding 2 tablespoons of ACV to 8 ounces of water, you'll quickly boost your energy levels and avoid this annoying problems. Alright, next is upset stomach. Sometimes a simple remedy like apple cider vinegar can settle an upset stomach. Again, by helping restore the pH level in the digestive tract, you can rid yourself of excess gas and even stomach cramping. Try a warm cup of water with 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar to calm an upset stomach. And of course, lastly, don't forget to enjoy and have fun.